Hey guys, Peter here to tell you about the latest from Militia, Hollow Void of March 18th on Season of Mist. This song has 9 tracks, 44 minutes in length, and this the band's 4 full-length studio album. They are a French black metal band, and it's been 10 long years since they released a full-length record. So what can you expect from this album? Well, from a structural perspective, this record drives the listener into the bowels of hell, into the deepest parts of hell. It has that feeling in terms of how the sound carries through, the impact that the sound has in the darkness of the album, and then that darkness, how it permeates to the atmosphere. It becomes thicker and thicker with every passing song. Now, it's also an album that changes the intensity, changes the movement, the momentum that it has. It has a very linear, straightforward approach. It never veers off of the beaten path, but it changes in terms of how it carries you forward from song to song. On one hand, when you look at this record, you feel like the album is very balanced because there's definitely elements that stay consistent from the first all the way to the last track. The atmosphere is definitely one of them. But it's also an album that's not repetitive. These changes that you see from song to song, the intros that the tracks have that really set them apart, it helps define what the lyrical content of the song is going to be all about. It sets up the atmosphere that those songs are going to have. All of these little things that are happening on a song-by-song basis really makes the album feel different, feel engaging on a track-by-track basis and not necessarily uniform and, like I said, repetitive. So overall, from a constructional perspective, this album definitely feels like a journey in which you're going down deep into a hole, but a journey nevertheless. The darkness surrounds you, you engage with it, you become transformed by it. That's the beauty of the construction of this record, an album that's really well designed for the sound that it offers. And the sound that it offers is old school black metal. Dark, evil, satanic, everything that you would come to expect from an old school black metal record, this album has in spades. It's a record that has big sound, but the sound really stretches out, but it doesn't lose its shape. You still feel where the borders are, where the songs are starting, where they're going to end, what the drums are doing, the bass, guitars, everything is coming together. But when you look at the overall design of this record, when you look at the overall soundscape of this album, you feel like this record is a lot bigger than what it appears to be at first glance. When you look at the drums, for example, and you see what they're doing to this record, they have 2 different purposes and they have 2 different approaches. On one side, you feel the heaviness that the drums provide the album. You see that in the power that they have and how they ground the tracks and how they give the songs substance and texture and feel so that the guitars can then be more penetrating on top of them. But they also play a different role. When you look at how the cymbals are used in this album, you feel like they flatten out the songs a little bit. They allow the drums at times to feel more penetrating and match the same vibe that you're getting out of the guitars. So it's a really interesting approach, a very dynamic approach, because it allows the songs to have 2 different experiences depending on where you are within the song in terms of how they move from heaviness to more of a driven sound. The drums really have a sense of balance and a sense of moving the pendulum one way or another, because the guitars, on the other hand, are more one-dimensional. They add some melody here and there, but overall is all about the force, the drive, the penetrating sound that they have, the grit, the dirt. They sound so grimy on this album, and they help really define the darkness in the atmosphere. And when I was talking earlier about this album driving the listener into the deepest bowels of hell and the atmosphere, sound, and darkness becoming thicker and thicker, a lot of that really comes from what the guitars are doing and the experience that they're giving throughout the songs. They don't have necessarily a one-size-fits-all in terms of the outcome, but they have a very similar approach in terms of what they're doing. Always pushing the songs, always carrying the listener forward, always blazing the path and using the drums behind them in order to give them the right substance and the right push to get them going in the right direction. On the other hand, the vocals are super consistent. What you see at the beginning of the record is exactly what you're going to see all the way through. There's a song here and there where I felt like the vocals stretched out a little bit more. They went a little bit outside of the comfort zone, if you will, but overall the essence of the album vocally is one that stays very connected, very balanced, and matches the overall experience that this album gives. One element about the vocals that I thought was really interesting is that I was expecting the vocals to be more contained, either in the background of the sound in order to create a sense of creepiness, to change the mood, to help the atmosphere, or in the forefront so they can drive the experience. On this record, I didn't feel like it was either one or the other. The vocals actually stay consistent, but they have a lot of movement. They always feel like they have a starting point at the back of the record, and then they move towards the front of the record every single time. So while they have a balanced out approach that stays uniform from the beginning to the end, the movement that they carry, it's something that gives life to the tracks, that impacts the songs in a very positive way, because when you're listening to it, the sound is moving, but also are the vocals moving with it. Really interesting approach, works really well for this record, definitely works very well for the overall atmosphere that they create. And I feel that the fans of black metal, this is an album that's going to definitely hit home with them. It's one of those unholy records that you must have in your collection. I honestly feel like you need to take a shower after listening to this album, because it's so evil, it's so dark, it's so menacing. It just has all the right ingredients to not just create a great atmosphere, but create a lingering atmosphere that stays with you even after you listen to the album. As far as favorite songs are concerned, I want to start off with Within the Maze. Great guitar riff on this track. The drums pack the sound behind that riff, pushing that riff into the forward area of how this song is constructed, really allowing the guitars to feel like they're driving the overall experience. It's a track that builds with intensity. It just feels like it's getting bigger, brighter, that it's getting more movement, adding more elements to it, and it has some great bass lines that really pop every so often throughout the track. You almost don't notice them until they're right on top of you, and that adds a different flavor to how the song comes across. It allows the song to have more movement, it allows the song to feel more dynamic, overall being more engaging as well. The vocals add to that movement because they have that sense of moving with the track, always feeling like they're starting at the back and they're pushing their way all the way through. That stays very controlled throughout the entire song, stays very controlled throughout the entire record. But overall, this is a track that feels very volatile. It has a lot of movement, it doesn't stay constant, it doesn't stay repetitive, it doesn't really give you a sense of creating patterns from start to finish. It's always evolving. Next on my list, I have The Highest Fall, a more methodic track, a track that really feels like it's dragging the listener through it. It's a slow grinder, if you will. It has a somber vibe, a somber atmosphere, and allows you to really sink into it. It's a track that works almost like quicksand. The more you listen to it, the slower it feels like you're moving, and the deeper you're getting into it. It just has that sort of appeal, and it has that sort of design, and it definitely has that sort of a vibe. The vocals are very consistent on this track and very controlled. They don't really break ground, they stay within their parameters regardless of what's happening musically around them. But it's a song that really stays very constant regardless. It just doesn't have a lot of movement in it. Perhaps a little bit more movement comes in, and at times there are a few bursts towards the half in the last third of the song where you feel like the intensity, the heaviness of the song is picking up, but it always goes back to that starting point. And when you get to the end of the song, those moments of intensity, those moments of heaviness almost become forgotten, because it's all about the atmosphere that the track created, and the atmosphere is one that allows you to sink into it, one that gives you a sense of almost not moving at all. Last but not least, Veneration. This is my favorite track on the album. First of all, great intro. The intro builds up what the song is going to be all about. At least from a lyrical content, from an atmosphere content, that intro becomes really important. It sets also the track apart because of it. So right away, the moment the song starts, you're on your toes because it has that great intro that sets the table. Then after that, it becomes very dark, it becomes melodic, it's heavy, it's gritty, it's all the above. Vocally, this song feels like it expands a little bit more. It goes outside the box. It's not as controlled as the two previous tracks. Perhaps one of the songs where you feel like the vocals are breaking the edges of those boundaries that they created for this record. Musically, the song is very engaging from start to finish. It doesn't fall into patterns, it doesn't feel repetitive, it doesn't feel like it's going back into the same arena time in and time out. It just has always this sense of evolving, moving, growing, morphing. Even though it does give you a lot of similarities throughout, there are some moments within the track that repeat themselves, but because of how they are spread out between one to the other, you almost forget about them because you're so engaged with everything that's happening around you, that atmosphere, that sound, that presence, that intro that built up into everything. So all of these things allow you to forget the moments that are repetitive within the track, making the song feel more dynamic, more engaging, and more entertaining all around. Great atmosphere, outstanding song. In my humble opinion, the best track on this entire record. I absolutely love this track, and everything was set up with that intro. This is it. Hell Militia, Hollow Void. Let me know your thoughts. It comes out March 18th on Season of Mist. Use the comment section below. I'll be reading those and getting back to you. Take care, guys.